Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I'm Gary, your host. And this is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. And this time, we're going to take a look at Supergirl, number 11 from 1983. With the lead story, the Supergirl story, written by Paul Kupperberg, with pencils by Carmine Infantino, inks by Bob Oksner. And then it also has a Lois Lane backup story we're going to take a little look at too, which is written by Joey Cavalieri, with pencils by Bob Oksner, and inks by Dave Hunt. Now, Bob Oksner is from 1916 to 2007. He's an American comic book artist who worked on adventure comic strips and humor and superhero comic books, working primarily at DC Comics. Early in his career, he created a second Marvel Boy in 1943 for Timely Comics. So I presume that he created an entirely different Marvel Boy, because they had a Marvel Boy before. Then from 45 to 47, he worked on Miss Cairo Jones, the newspaper strip. Then he was hired by Sheldon Mayer at DC and worked on the JSA and All-Star Comics. That's the Justice Society of America. Then he moved to the humor titles, such as Binky, which was an Archie-type humor, teen humor book. And he worked on Jerry Lewis and Bob Hope, etc., as well as on the newspaper comic strip version of I Love Lucy. And later, at DC, he worked on, and I think if I remember correctly, he co-created Angel and the Ape and Stanley and His Monster. And he did some beautiful, beautiful work on, especially on Angel and the Ape. And even though it's humor, and I've showed it here before, he just had some lovely line work, and even, or maybe especially, in in Angel and the Ape, showed that he could do just lovely women, females, and he also did some work on the romance books. When the humor books died, this is like in the late 60s and early 70s, he moved back to the superheroes. And he was quite competent, if you could call it that. Now, I mentioned that, of course, this is 1983. This is pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths, and in which this version of Supergirl died. But this is before that. And often in the Supergirl stuff, they had, as well as the Lois Lane books, they had superhero stories, but it also had an awful lot of elements from the romance comics. And the artists were usually same artists that they used in the romance comics, because there are so many female characters, and the romance comic artists were so good at doing very lovely female figures and faces. Now here we see on this cover by Gil Kane, and of course Gil Kane was good at doing the whole shebang. He drew and he inked. Unfortunately, at this time in his career, his inking kind of was not the best. I think that was largely because at this time in the 70s stuff, he was using primarily a flare felt tip marker for to do his inking, and it had very little variation in the line, which made it less visually. Now the inking job is fine on here, but his inking line was less appealing, not as visually interesting, but his incredible draftsmanship, I think, pretty much made up for that. But I usually prefer to see other artists inking his pencils, just because they usually did a better looking ink line. And this really kind of places it in time. When it got down here is the Superman 3 movie sweepstakes, details inside. So this is while they were making Superman 3. That's the bad one with the comedian. I suddenly can't think of his name. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And here we go. And Supergirl. Now this is a continuing storyline. It carried over from the previous issue, and it will be continued into the following issue, which I kind of hate. But and this time, Supergirl has been captured, and at this point where the story begins, they think she is dead by this organization just known as the Council. And the story this starts off taking place in Chicago, which I think at this time she was based out of. They come up with some technological stuff, and they zapped her or whatever, and they think she is dead. But it was to get at her DNA and break down her DNA so that they could create some clones. Hence, you see all the little Supergirls all around her and attacking her. So here we go. So we start right off. Supergirl. Now, I did not care for, at this time in his career, Carmine Infantino, his style just was not as appealing as it had been in the 60s. I'm sorry to say that. I just did not care for his, which is one of the reasons why I think at this time I didn't buy too much in the way of Supergirl, and why he was also about this time, or just prior to this, he had been working at Marvel doing the Star Wars monthly comic book, and I did not like his work on Star Wars, which is why one of the main reasons why several years ago I got rid of almost all my, now I wish I hadn't, got rid of almost all my early Marvel Star Wars comics. And here is somewhere in Chicago, and he's talking, and this is the scientist involved talking to the head of the council, and he's saying, and they say they think she's dead, but she's in this chamber filled with this fluid. And there he shows it. Their technique was successful in cloning Supergirl, but unfortunately, their technique is not perfect, and they can only make clones that are approximately 1/5 the size of the original. So they're basically about 11 to 12 inches tall, like a Barbie doll. And the guy's not happy with that, but they can still be useful because they have all of her powers. And apparently they also have a certain portion of her memories. But here in the process, while they think she's dead because there's been no heartbeat or respiration or anything like that, she's kind of been dormant. And as I said, Bob Oksner did the inks, and I'm not even thrilled with Bob Oksner's inks, but I think it is an improvement over on Carmine Infantino's pencils. And suddenly she starts getting heartbeats, and she wakes up, and she finds she's in there. With difficulty, she manages to break free and shatters out of the container, the tank she's in. She smashes out, but she's weak. Oh, she said, "I know how a goldfish feels." She's weakened, severely weakened. She guards hear her. They come in and they start blasting away. She's still bulletproof, but ow, it hurts. Those bullets hurt, but they're not breaking her skin. And she still has just enough juice for some heat vision to startle the guys, but not to severely injure them. And she's just strong enough to take him out. She's managed to get away, and she can still fly, but she's limited on her speed and how well she can fly. And this is one of the, I thought she was dead. I thought she was dead. No, yes, not. Well, go get her. Send the clones there. But the clones aren't quite ready. Send them after her anyway. And they have all her powers, and here we see, but I guess they have mind control of the little clones. So she takes off, and she's going to Superman's Fortress of Solitude in the Arctic Circle. And, she gets there. There's the big steel door. But, she's got the key. Oh, the key is so big and so huge, and she's not strong enough right now. She can't lift it. So she just hustles and flies right through the keyhole. There's means of protections to keep people from doing that, but the stuff recognizes her as Kara Zor-El. She gets in, starts to do some stuff with the equipment for diagnostics and hopefully treatment. But meanwhile, the little clones have gotten there, and they follow her right through the hole, and they pass through too because they pass muster right through all the stuff. And while she's there, then they attack her. Wham! So they are like the equivalent of her at full power, but 11 inches tall. So they are all tougher than she is, and she's still in a weakened state. And she fights back valiantly, but they kind of take her out, smash them through. There's the trophy room and other stuff. But they take her down, and then they are dragging her towards one place in the fortress, towards the disintegration pit. Dun, dun, dun! Guess who's about to die? Well, we know it's really not going to be her. But still, she's threatened with death once again, and we don't see what happens until next time. Then we have the backup story, which is, for Supergirl lead story, that's fairly short because it's just over half the book. And then the rest of it is taken up by the Lois Lane backup story. Now this, as I said, was penciled by Bob Oksner, and you can really tell his lovely pencils under Dave Hunt's inks. And I think the page layout, storytelling is a little more interesting and innovative, and it is a self-contained story. And I'm not going to go too much into the story. Something happened to this young lady who just passed her on horseback as Lois is out jogging, and they rush her to the hospital, get the cops, everything, something's not right. She realizes that that was a lovely face right up there. Real lovely Lois Lane face. And she spotted something. When she was riding by, she had gloves. When she was found, she didn't have gloves. And so she's looking around in the spot. She finds a place where someone had been hiding and eating peanuts. Left all peanut shells. Here's the only peanut vendor. He talks with this guy, gets a brief description because it was the only. It's a cloudy day, and the only customer he's had so far this morning. And then she's back at work and have some office stuff. But in the office, Inspector Henderson from the police is leaving the office after talking with Perry White, and Lois talks with him and about that case. He thinks something's going off, and he's there had been talking about a jewel theft, a jewel heist. A Greek shipping magnate had been down on his luck, and he's got this extremely valuable jewel. Brought it to possibly sell it, and the person who had the jewel, the jeweler who had the jewel was appraising it, been knocked out, the jewel stolen, and so they're kind of working together, but on different cases, because it turns out that the description of the guy with the peanuts matches the description of the guy they think is the jewel thief, and so they go to see the shipping magnate, and there's the guy right there in the lobby. He takes Henderson, snatches him, finds the jewel. It's a convoluted plot. The girl had the jewel, and he had some information. I've forgotten what it was. Doesn't matter. And Lois Lane has solved the case, and it's a pretty well written story. It's a very short story, and but just look at those. That Lois Lane figure right there, and those eyes. It's just a lovely, lovely job on the pencils by Bob Oksner. And that is the end of Supergirl number 11. And of course, the Supergirl story is fine. It's not. I don't think it's as well written and concise as the Lois Lane story. But that's all I've got. But all of this at this time is still well worth reading if you can get a hold of some of these issues. And a bright spot is, of course, this great Gil Kane cover. So thank you for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe, and do leave a comment. Do you like this version of Supergirl? Do you like Gil Kane's cover? Anything like that, and any questions that you may have that I may or may not be able to answer. Let me know in the comments below, and remember, comics are art.